terms. Now let Diddy out. Free Diddy.
Wow, you think somebody didn't want me to do this interview? Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Why are so many people coming down with pneumonia?
What could cause a seasoned artist like Diddy to visibly lose his cool in a courtroom? Known for his composed public persona and years of experience in the spotlight, it's rare to see him emotionally unravel, especially in such a serious setting. Yet something clearly pushed him past his breaking point. Adding to the drama, Ray J was seen passionately yelling, "Free Diddy," from the courtroom gallery. His outburst turned heads, but what truly left the entire courtroom in stunned silence was what he revealed next. The revelation was so unexpected and shocking that even the most composed attendees were left speechless.
I think it's kind of becoming a circus, and all the allegations, and now with everybody explaining like what's happening in the bedroom. I mean, every day it just sounds crazier and crazier and freakier and weirder, right? And I'm like trying to understand, with all this being said, like with Kid Cudi going on and saying everything that happened, but then ended up saying, Cassie played both of us. It's like, where are we trying to go? Are we just trying to like tell all of these crazy stories and then that equals out to sex trafficking? I mean, it's starting to become outrageous. It's a RICO case. It's really only Diddy and maybe one other person. Like, I'm just starting to feel uncomfortable, and I'm starting to feel weird about this whole thing.
Well, it was certainly interesting last week when I interviewed this guy who had the pseudonym The Punisher, who was hired, and it was Cassie Ventura. Right. So it was a sort of very interesting interview because Cassie Ventura did all the negotiating, did all the payments, and did all the texting to him. Diddy would sit in the corner of a hotel room naked, and he would watch, with her apparent full consent, this guy come in and have sex with her. And it happened maybe a dozen times over a 2.5-year period. Now, none of that says to me that that is a serious crime. If she is the one that is organizing it all. Now, she is arguing it was coercion and so on. You know all these people very well. You know Cassie Ventura. You know...
The courtroom was already charged with tension. Diddy sat at the defense table, his every move under the scrutiny of both the judge and a packed gallery. The trial had become a magnet for media and spectators alike, with nearly every seat filled and cameras buzzing outside the doors. People murmured quietly, reporters scribbled in their notepads, and the air was thick with anticipation. But even in a trial already plagued by dramatic twists, no one could have predicted what would unfold next. Out of nowhere, Ray J, who had been seated quietly among the crowd, suddenly rose to his feet. His shout tore through the muffled atmosphere, silencing the room instantly. "Free Diddy," he yelled, his voice echoing off the courtroom walls. It wasn't just anger behind his words, it was desperation. For a moment, everything froze. Heads whipped around toward him, the collective shock visible on every face. A gasp rippled through the gallery as Ray J's outburst interrupted the judge mid-sentence. The judge frowned deeply, visibly startled, and her gavel hit the bench with a loud crack, demanding order. But the scene was impossible to control. Diddy shifted uncomfortably at the defense table, his usual composed demeanor visibly shaken. His hands fidgeted on the table as he avoided eye contact with the scene unfolding just feet away. Some members of the jury exchanged bewildered glances, while others kept their eyes fixed on Ray J, trying to process what was happening. Meanwhile, the lawyers for both sides whispered furiously among themselves, clearly scrambling to determine how this disruption might affect the case. Ray J's words carried a weight that went far beyond simple support. He made it clear there was more beneath the surface. "You don't even know the half of it," he added, raising his voice even louder. "You're all looking in the wrong direction." The crowd's whispers grew louder, their curiosity now turning into outright speculation. Ray J didn't just appear unhinged, he seemed to be making a point, one that none of them were prepared to hear. The courtroom was on edge, the tension almost unbearable. Diddy's discomfort became more obvious, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way out. It wasn't just the words "Free Diddy" that seemed to shake him. What Ray J implied next sent an even darker message. His cryptic statements hinted at a hidden truth, something that had yet to see the light of day. The weight of his outburst left everyone struggling to make sense of what they had just witnessed. Finally, Ray J was escorted out of the courtroom by security, but the impact of his words lingered. The energy in the room had shifted entirely. Reporters scribbled furiously while murmurs continued among the spectators. What could Ray J possibly mean? What secret could be so dangerous that he would risk an outburst during such a high-profile trial? And most importantly, how did this involve Diddy? Whatever the answer was, one thing was clear. The trial had just taken a turn no one saw coming.
I was just thinking, like, what year are we in? Like, it feels like we're in this vortex of like this dominatrix story about all of these different characters that are coming out and the names and the nicknames. And I mean, it's intense. I think that it's entertaining for sure, and it's definitely press worthy. But at the end of it all, it's like, this is what Diddy is being charged for, and this is what he possibly might serve a lot of jail time for. I don't understand it, and I really want to know where this is all gonna go and where does this lead? Because again, it's weird, it's freaky, like the whole oral thing with the 19 guys and the blisters. I mean, it feels like they're just trying to paint these pictures of Diddy, and I was around Diddy all the way pretty much up until the arrest, and all I got from that when I hung out with Diddy, and this is word to my mom and kids, he's always inspired me to be great. When I left, I felt like I could do more for my business. I felt like I had more power because I wanted to be more vocal in running my companies and call my wife if we were getting into it and send her flowers. I mean, these are all the things he was instilling to me and all of the young guys around that were inspired and you know, look at him as a mentor. So now these private things that happen when we were around and never even got a chance to see this kind of crazy stuff, it just sounds like this was a private, personal thing that was happening, and now it's starting to become it's diabolical.
Courtroom struggled to regain order after Ray J's explosive outburst. Security had escorted him to the witness stand, where he sat down, visibly shaken, yet resolute. The judge, still clearly annoyed by the disruption, banged her gavel again and demanded silence. Whispers died down. All eyes were now on Ray J as he leaned forward, his voice steady but laced with raw emotion. What he said next didn't just surprise the room. It transformed the entire atmosphere. "I'm not just here to defend Diddy," Ray J began, his tone sharp and unwavering. "I'm here because someone tried to end me, and I'm done staying quiet about it." A ripple of unease spread through the gallery. Reporters exchanged stunned glances in the back row, their pens racing across notepads, some whispering urgently into their phones. The air grew heavier with each second, thick with anticipation and disbelief. Who was Ray J implicating in such a serious accusation? The prosecution looked visibly rattled, unprepared for the bombshell being dropped in real time. At the defense table, Diddy avoided everyone's gaze, his posture stiff, eyes downcast, as though willing himself invisible. "They know who they are," Ray J continued, his eyes scanning the courtroom with intensity. "They've been walking around like they've already won." Heads turned instinctively toward the defense table where Diddy sat, his expression unreadable. But then, Ray J said the name that shattered whatever composure remained in the room. "I'm talking about James Winston," he said flatly, enunciating every syllable with deliberate clarity. Gasps erupted. One woman in the gallery audibly exclaimed, "What?" before the judge banged the gavel again, demanding order. The room was in shock. James Winston was a name no one expected to hear. A powerful, well-connected figure in the entertainment world, Winston was known for his business dealings with some of the industry's biggest names. For Ray J to accuse him, publicly, and under oath, of attempted murder sent shockwaves through the courtroom and immediately lit up social media. Reporters began typing even faster, some whispering Winston's name into their phones, others sharing the breaking development live with editors. But Ray J wasn't done. He detailed what he described as a coordinated effort to silence him. Cryptic warnings, close calls that felt staged, and one chilling encounter where he was convinced his life was in real danger. "I've been holding this in for too long," he said, locking eyes with Diddy. "But they know I'm right. They know what they did." The judge issued another stern warning to maintain courtroom decorum, but no one could look away. Diddy's face remained a mask, but his hands, resting on the defense table, betrayed him with the slightest, involuntary twitch. Murmurs rose again across the room. Ray J's testimony hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore, impossible to forget. Whatever came next, it was clear his accusation was no longer just a dramatic sideshow. It now felt central to Diddy's trial, raising urgent questions. What evidence did Ray J have? Could he prove his claims? And how deep did this go?
Unless I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you think that there's been a massive overreach here. This is personal behavior between Diddy and Cassie Ventura that we've seen so far, that it doesn't cross the line from where you sit into serious crime under the RICO law, which of course was, intended for mafia members and so on. Do you think that's what we're witnessing here with this case? That this was consensual? It may be freaky, it may be sexually deviant, it may be all these things, but it was apparently consensual behavior and not a crime.
I agree, and there's things that we saw in these videos, and they were disturbing, and that's not okay, right? But looking at the crimes that he's being charged for, this is where it starts to go overboard, and it's like whoever was mad at the top was really mad, and I think we're here now, and I think it's a flex, because like, what are they trying to get out of this in this court case? Does everybody that's talking about these stories, do they want to see Puffy rot in jail? Is that what we're here for? Because I just think that that's unfair, and just knowing everybody, it just could have been done a different way, and now it's starting to worry me, and I honestly think that Diddy will get out, and I think that there's nothing here. Right? I think they made their point, whatever they were trying to make. Your point is made.
Diddy was known for his calculated coolness, a man who rarely let emotion crack through his polished public image. But as Ray J's accusations cut deeper, that carefully sculpted facade began to show signs of strain. When James Winston's name was spoken aloud, Diddy's initial reaction was restrained, yet revealing. He didn't flinch, but his posture stiffened. His left hand, steady on the tabletop for most of the trial, slowly tightened its grip on the edge. His jaw clenched. His gaze remained locked straight ahead. From a distance, it might have looked like composure, but anyone watching closely could see the tension creeping in. By now, every eye in the room was bouncing between Ray J and Diddy, weighing the words and decoding the body language. The audience sat frozen. The jury remained outwardly expressionless, trained not to react, but the energy in the room was unmistakably charged. Diddy, however, refused to meet their eyes, or anyone's. Instead, his head dipped slightly lower, one hand moving to adjust his collar as if the air had suddenly thickened. His attorney leaned in, whispering something quickly in his ear, but Diddy didn't respond. His focus was locked on some invisible point on the floor, his silence speaking volumes. The accusations had clearly shifted the very axis of the trial. Both legal teams scrambled to absorb the implications of this volatile twist. Meanwhile, the gallery reacted instantly. Phones buzzed with muted vibrations as texts, tweets, and updates flew out faster than anyone could keep up with. Reporters leaned into one another, confirming the spelling of Winston's name, already strategizing the headlines they'd launch the moment a recess was called. At the center of it all, Diddy's reaction, or lack thereof, became one of the most scrutinized moments in the room. This wasn't just about Ray J anymore. It was about how Diddy was carrying the weight of these shocking claims, and how the world outside the courtroom would interpret every micro-expression, every break in his cool. And the cracks were starting to show. As Ray J continued, recounting specific details of what he claimed were orchestrated attempts to threaten his life, Diddy's once impenetrable exterior began to falter. His shoulders sagged slightly. His breathing grew more deliberate, more labored. For the first time since the trial began, he placed both hands flat on the table, his fingers pressing against the surface like he was trying to steady himself, to stay grounded in a moment that was spinning out of control. Then came the moment that silenced even the whispers. Ray J described an alleged close brush with death, tampered brakes on his car. The courtroom seemed to stop breathing. And for the first time, Diddy's composure broke completely. He leaned back in his chair, a deep exhale escaping him. His lips parted as if he were about to speak, but he caught himself, clenching his jaw once more. The damage, however, was done. That reaction, subtle yet unmistakable, confirmed the weight of what had just been said. This was no longer courtroom theater. It felt real. Outside, the moment was already exploding across social media, speculation running rampant. Was Diddy finally cracking under the pressure? Did Ray J's claims have merit? And what would this mean for the already precarious trajectory of the trial? Inside, Diddy's silence loomed larger than anything he could have said. Every reaction, every twitch, every labored breath, none of it went unnoticed. And as Ray J's testimony edged closer to revealing his alleged evidence, it seemed clear that whatever composure Diddy had left was on borrowed time.
Whenever they have an addiction to MDMA or the drug ecstasy, they call it the love drug. So he's been doing this drug for over 20 years. So that's going to lead his view skewed when it comes to sexual activity. I believe it's helped turn him into a sexual deviant. And, what type of man wants to see another man urinate in his wife's mouth? I feel like it's evil. I think his behavior is egregious. And, I have a history of using very heinous acts on people like this who participate in this type of lascivious acts. Have you ever noticed how in this industry, people untimely meet their demise as soon as somebody else seems like they're having a problem? Have you ever seen that before?
Well, there was, of course, the case of one of his other ex-girlfriends, Kim Porter, who died of pneumonia at a very young age. You've just referenced your own situation with pneumonia that you believe was deliberate poisoning. Do you believe that may be what happened to her?
Jamie Foxx said out of his mouth that his partner handed him an Advil, and after he took that Advil, he woke up 22 days later. That's what he said out of his mouth. I feel like us as a species, I feel like human skepticism has become a virus, because if we don't trust the words of our peers, where are we as a species? Eyewitness testimony and circumstantial evidence is enough to get a person a life sentence in any court on the earth. Why is it that when people are whistleblowing and putting their life and livelihood on the line, they receive so much scrutiny? I don't think that's by chance.
There have been rumors circulating online that Diddy may have poisoned Jamie Foxx, which caused his 2023 hospitalization. In his Netflix show, he compared Combs to the devil in revealing his near-death experience after a brain bleed and stroke. He said, "I say this all the time. I saw the tunnel. I didn't see the light. It was hot in that tunnel. I thought, shit, have I gone to the wrong place? I looked at the end of the tunnel and I thought I saw the devil saying, come on, or was that Puffy? I'm effing around, but if that was Puffy at a flaming bottle of Johnson," and no, I'm just kidding. I think that you have taken that to be a not too oblique reference to the fact that he's suggesting he may too have been poisoned.
The tension in the courtroom reached a breaking point as the judge, composed but firm, instructed Ray J to proceed with his testimony. His earlier claims had already rattled the room, but now the focus shifted entirely to the evidence he claimed to possess. Every eye was fixed on him as he paused, drawing out the moment with deliberate gravity. The silence was so complete that even the faint squeak of someone shifting in their seat seemed amplified. For a split second, it felt as though no one dared to breathe. Ray J cleared his throat and leaned toward the microphone. "I brought receipts," he said, his voice steady but intense. What followed was nothing short of riveting. First, he pulled out a stack of printed emails, direct communications, he alleged, between himself and associates of James Winston. The language in these emails was, at times, cryptic, but Ray J highlighted several particularly chilling phrases. He read one aloud, "We'll make sure you're silenced permanently if you keep talking." As the words hung heavy in the air, a wave of discomfort spread through the room. No one moved. No one spoke. He flipped to the next piece of evidence, phone records. Ray J claimed these showed multiple calls from an anonymous number, calls he tied to threatening messages and near-deadly incidents. One call, dated just hours before the incident with his car's brakes, reportedly included a message that said, "Watch your back. Accidents happen every day." The defense quickly objected, citing hearsay, but the judge overruled. "The evidence will speak for itself," she said, allowing Ray J to continue. But it was the next moment that sent the deepest shock through the courtroom. Ray J held up a photograph. An image, he said, of the tampered brake lines from his car. He described how his mechanic had discovered the damage and confirmed it was not due to natural wear and tear, but something deliberate. Some members of the jury leaned forward, their curiosity clearly piqued. Others maintained careful neutrality, though their fixed gazes betrayed interest. The courtroom, once again, was still. The prosecution moved to challenge Ray J's credibility, questioning why he had waited so long to come forward with such critical evidence. Ray J didn't flinch. "This isn't just about me," he replied. "I stayed quiet because I was scared. I didn't know who I could trust. But now, I've had enough." The courtroom buzzed quietly as lawyers from both sides huddled in whispered conversation. While some of Ray J's evidence could be considered circumstantial, the emotional impact and potential implications were undeniable. The judge remained neutral in expression, but the tension in her posture suggested she, too, was weighing the gravity of what had just been presented. As the session broke for recess, the murmurs grew louder, and speculation reached a fever pitch. Reporters raced to their devices, courtroom sketch artists hastily filled in expressions, and the gallery buzzed with theories and questions. One thing was abundantly clear. Whatever came next, Ray J's testimony had shaken the trial to its core. His claims had not only put Diddy's legal standing into question, they threatened to redefine his entire public image and career trajectory forever.
I was scheduled to be in this interview. Randomly, our car gets hit from the side by a blacked out vehicle. No license plate. That's happened 3 times this month so far.
Really?
Somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. You know, I'm somebody where I've had FBI come to my house before and tell me they found a threat against my life.
P. Diddy, this seems like every day the scandal gets bigger and worse for him.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, I think I was on your show before he got arrested and I brought up what was going on with him, and because I had read through the lawsuit, and it was just one of those things that was unavoidable because there was so much evidence. I mean, there was picture documentation, there was video documentation. And I also want to be clear that the press and the media and the public at large is shocked by what's happening, but we really are just getting to the beginning of everything.
A lot of things start happening to remove people from the case that are going to strengthen the case for the prosecution. And I feel like we're watching that take place now with one of the male sex worker guys who provided tapes to the feds. He's disappeared. And this is similar to what happened in the Tory Lanez case, where the bodyguard whose DNA was on the weapon, he disappeared.
She and Cassie needed to sway Kid Cudi against telling the cops that Diddy was involved in the alleged break-in. Clark testified, quote, he says, if you guys don't convince him of that, I'll kill all you MFers. But that wasn't the only time that Clark said that she feared for her own life. She claimed Diddy once accused her of stealing diamond jewelry, said that she suffered through 5 straight days of lie detector tests inside of a gutted, run-down Manhattan office building. She testified the man giving the tests warned her, quote, I'm not getting a good reading. You need to calm down. You're going to be in the East River if I can't get a reading on this.
And the prosecution had alleged in its opening he had staffers who helped him commit crimes that aren't necessarily charged, statute of limitations expired, etc., but that he committed as part of this overall criminal enterprise. Phil, let me start with you on whether the prosecution is making its case.
Well, it sounds like, Megan, they're finally getting into some of the meat of the matter, because up until now, we've heard a lot of emotionally charged testimony. We've heard about domestic violence. We've heard about, third-rate burglaries and things like that, like you were just discussing. But we haven't heard much about how this was some type of criminal enterprise related to, sex trafficking. We're starting to hear now that who these people are that are the other racketeers. You've got other employees, security personnel. And so the government is starting to make its case. They've got a long way to go. But until today, I had a lot of reasonable doubt that things that I was thinking about, because these witnesses all seem to have some degree of kind of affection for Combs, or maybe had affection in the past. And it may be that they all had some kind of an angle, some incentive to testify against him, maybe sour.
The ripple effect of Ray J's testimony was immediate and colossal. Within hours, news headlines across every major outlet plastered his accusations in bold type. Social media erupted with theories, memes, and heated debates, transforming the trial from a high-profile court proceeding into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Fans, critics, and casual observers alike took sides as hashtags like #FreeDiddy, #RayJ and #WinstonExposed began trending worldwide. What had begun as a trial focused solely on Diddy was now tangled in a web of power, fear, and the hidden dangers of celebrity life. The public narrative no longer centered just on the charges against him. Ray J's explosive claims dragged the broader entertainment industry into the spotlight, raising uncomfortable questions about what else might be lurking beneath its glossy surface. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution appeared visibly rattled. Up until that point, their strategy had been clean and direct: keep the jury's focus locked on the charges against Diddy. But Ray J's revelations upended everything. His accusations against James Winston didn't just stir drama, they hinted at a far-reaching conspiracy. Suddenly, what had seemed like a straightforward trial now demanded a reassessment from every angle. During recess, the defense team huddled tightly, no doubt weighing how this bombshell could work in their favor. If Ray J's story pulled focus away from Diddy, it might cast enough doubt to blur the jury's perception of the charges. On the other hand, the prosecutors now faced mounting pressure to respond. Could Winston's alleged involvement create a reasonable doubt in the minds of jurors? Would ignoring the implications make them appear complicit in overlooking a bigger threat? What had once been a controlled, linear case was now a chaotic maze, and both legal teams knew just how high the stakes had risen. For Diddy, the fallout extended far beyond the courtroom. In the court of public opinion, perceptions began to shift. He had long maintained a delicate balance, celebrated as a cultural icon while navigating a shadow of persistent controversy. But now, even his most loyal supporters were forced to confront unsettling questions. Was Diddy simply caught in a web bigger than himself? Or had he known far more than he let on? Outside, the media frenzy spilled into late-night news and talk shows. Pundits debated whether this trial would finally expose fractures in an entertainment empire that had endured for decades. Ray J's accusations didn't just implicate Winston. They placed a harsh, unrelenting spotlight on himself. Almost immediately, critics questioned his motives. Was this a cry for relevance? A calculated performance? Yet others praised his courage, applauding him for speaking up despite the enormous pressure. Ray J, once known mostly for reality TV and music, now found himself at the center of a much darker narrative. His reputation was being rewritten in real time, weighted with both suspicion and admiration. Regardless of how the public judged him, one thing was certain: his testimony had permanently altered the trajectory of both his career and his image. But perhaps the most striking moment of the day came just before recess, when the judge addressed the courtroom. Her tone was calm, yet resolute. "Allegations of this magnitude must be thoroughly examined," she said, her eyes locked firmly on Ray J. It wasn't a dismissal, nor was it an endorsement. It was an acknowledgement of just how serious the situation had become. As court adjourned for the day, a cloud of unanswered questions loomed. Could Ray J's evidence hold up under scrutiny? Would Diddy's defense capitalize on the chaos now swirling around the trial? One thing was unmistakably clear. Whatever came next had the potential to reshape not just the outcome of the case, but the legacy of everyone involved. Celebrity trials have a way of exposing truths capable of shaking even the most carefully built empires, and this one was no exception. Ray J's shocking testimony has thrown a harsh spotlight on the high-stakes, unpredictable world of fame, where even the smallest crack can bring towering reputations to their knees. But with so much left unsaid and unproven, this trial is far from over. What happens next could alter careers, lives, and public perception forever.
Hey,